Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dotun Ayodele of Africa X. This evening, we're presenting you a special. We're going to be talking about pathways to practice. And today, I have with me three eminent Canadian lawyers who have been called to bar at least twice each, one of them more than that. Um, they will be telling us their experiences from getting called to bar in their respective provinces in Canada. Shalewa in particular will be sharing her experience transferring between provinces. So with me tonight are Moyosore Sadiq, uh, Lawretta Osehise, and Omoshalewa Onayemi. Thank you very much, ladies, for choosing to spend this evening with me to share your experience.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much
Fantastic.
for that for having
Fantastic.
us.
So, without taking any more time, Moyo of Mo's Law Office, do you want to tell us how exactly was your experience changing that practice license from Nigeria to Ontario? How did that happen, and what did that process look like?
Right. So I won't really say it's changing because I still have
Or would I
my
say adding?
Nigerian practice.
Yes.
So I'm still an active member of the NBA, and I still pay my dues in Nigeria. Still a lawyer in Nigeria. I didn't post that, but I have that now. In addition, I have the qualification, and I'm a lawyer in Ontario too. So the process was, I guess, right now when you're done with it, you tend to forget, just like a woman having a baby. You know how stressful the
Oh,
pregnancy is when you deliver, how you curse and say, I'm never doing this again, I'm never having a baby again, and things like that. When you have a baby, you forget all that pain, all that stress and everything. So I think I'm going to like compare this to that. Now with my practice, I'm not in it, so I don't really feel how horrible it was. But I remember how horrible it was when I was in it, when I was still writing my exams, where I had to miss a lot of my children's activities because I had to, get ready for an exam, where I couldn't go out with my spouse when he wanted me to because I had to get ready for an exam. So there's a lot of sacrifice in the family area, and even for yourself. You put everything away to focus on getting licensed, and it does take a lot of time for some people. So some people write it and complete the licensing process in a very short period. However, for some, it's not as short, because I always advise people to know your pace and follow through with your pace, right? So it was a kind of long journey for me, because I would say the process started in 2018, and I
okay.
got called to the bar in 2020. So that's about 2 years that it took there, from passing the NCA exams and then writing the bar exams. So it took that long for me. And NCA is usually the first step. You go on nca.legal. There is a self-assessment tool there. You do the self-assessment tool. You register, you create a profile where you upload your resume, that's your CV, and fill in all the details about your legal education and legal background. Then you pay the application fees, and they would require your institution. So the schools where you got your LL.B, your BL, if you have a master's degree, that's fine. They need those institutions to directly send your transcripts to them for them to then provide an assessment for you. And once the assessment is provided, some people get different numbers of exams to write, and it's based on your legal work experience. It's based on your scores in your transcript, like the courses you did in your LL.B, BL, or wherever. So they're considering all those factors, and they decide the number of exams you would write. It's a minimum of 5 exams that Canadian constitutional law, Canadian foundations of law, administrative law, professional responsibility, and criminal law. That's the minimum you can write. So there's two pathways to fulfilling these competencies. Um, you can decide to get an LLM in, for example, in York University or Osgoode University, for with Canadian masters in Canadian common law, right? I know they do that. I know other schools do these things too, but I don't know what the names are different, right? So you just have to really do your research to know what the name of the master's degree is that would fulfill this NCA question competencies, right?
Okay.
So some people decide to just do the LLM and use one stone to kill two birds, right?
Mm.
So they get an LLM that they've always wanted, and it
Yes.
also covers all the NCA exams required to move on to get your licensing, right? So the other option, which is more common because it's less expensive, really, is the writing the NCA exams on your own. um that's the path I followed, right? I wrote my NCA exams. Then after passing the NCA exams, the NCA exam is at a federal level, so that's something
Yeah.
everyone in Canada trying to get licensed, they have to go through that ordeal first. And once you are
Okay.
done with that ordeal, that's when you now come back to the provincial level, and now you have to know what each of your provinces, what's the requirement, what's the law society's requirement in your province, what do they need. So for Ontario, what what you need is you need to write the barrister's exam and you need to write the solicitor's exam. The next thing, it's not really some people do their articling before writing the bar exams. Some people do it the other way around. So they are not particular about what comes first in
Okay.
that mode. So you do your articling. However, in Ontario, we have like two options around that articling um, requirements. Either you do your articling or you do the Ryerson University Law Practice Program, the LPP, right? And the
Okay.
LPP is something that it's a 8 months course. You do 4 months in class and 4 months internship, the actual articling, right?
Okay.
So, and the other option is getting an exemption from articling or getting an abridgment. So some people say, oh, I have this much experience. I need an abridgment. I want it to be a reduced term for my articling, or I want a full exemption. And to get a full exemption, they need you to show that you have at least 10 months of legal experience in a common law country, which Nigeria is. So I got a full exemption in my case. And especially because I had the confidence because I did paralegal diploma too at the same time while I was doing my NCA exams. So I figured, okay, if I want the substantial knowledge of all the other areas of law, aside from the five courses that I have to pass in the NCA, I'll get a paralegal diploma, which really it really helped me to decide my niche. It helped me to decide which areas of law I want to practice.
Lawretta, can we go ahead and just begin to talk about Alberta? You can pick it up from exactly where Moyo stopped. If the process is similar, and if it's different, then tell us where it bifurcates.
Okay, thank you very much, Datu, and hello everyone. The process is the same up until the NCAs. So Moyo has been kind enough to tell us the process of, assessment before the NCAs and writing the NCAs. Like she mentioned earlier, the NCAs are a self-study program where you have to read on your own and write the exams on your own. However, a lot of people have found a market in this area because the NCAs does not provide a platform for lectures or tutoring like uni. So um, people then resort to notes written by people who've gone through the process to make it easier. So you have notes for sale, and then you also have tutors who charge a certain amount of money to just teach people what's in the syllabus. So people have that option when they're writing the NCs. I just needed to mention that. So if it seems daunting, don't be scared if you don't want to go through the LLM or the certification route. There is also help on the NCA route that you can pay for. And then you also have groups and pro bono groups for study, and just for conversations, and where people just come together and meet to have that conversation as well. So after writing the NCA for Alberta, there is no exemption in Alberta for articling.
Oh, okay.
You cannot
Okay.
you cannot be exempted from articling. Alberta doesn't toe the line of Ontario in that
Okay.
regard, so they have their own rules and regulations. So in Alberta you must article, and then you do the CIPLED program, is the bar admission program for Alberta. Now it's for four provinces. You have Alberta, you have Manitoba, you have Nova Scotia, and you have Saskatchewan. So four provinces do the CIPLED program. Now, the CIPLED program is a 9-month education program. It's broken into bits and pieces, modules, sections, segments. It covers maybe about, it's very intense, maybe in total about 300 hours of study. It is intense. And the plan and the whole idea is to do it alongside your articling. So as you're going through the programs and modules, you are replicating it in a law firm, in a system, in a law firm while articling, right? So ideally, you should be articling and doing CIPLED so that you can do the physical aspect of the CIPLED in a law office, in an organization. Oh, by the way, you can article in a whole lot of places. You can article in an organization, you can article in a court, you can article in a law firm. As long as there's a principal who is 4 years and above in Alberta, who is willing to sign you on and register you as a mentee or as an intern or as a student at law, then you can actually article anywhere. What's important, what the Law Society of Alberta is concerned about, is that the person who's your principal is capable, is has gotten the requisite experience, which is a minimum of 4 years, to be able to teach you, because at that point you are considered a student at law. So your principal has to have gotten enough experience to be able to take you on and to teach you the legal practice in Canada. So, like I said, ideally, you're supposed to article while you're doing CIPLED. Unfortunately, it doesn't always work out like that. So, a lot of people tend to wait for months or years after getting their qualifying certificate to be able to secure a slot for articles. It's very competitive. You don't have enough qualified principals for the number of lawyers who are, getting churned out every day. Yes, and a principal can only take two articling students at every point in time. Now, articles in Alberta used to be 12 months, 12 months mandatory. If you needed an abridgment, you had to apply, and the Law Society will consider it on a one-on-one basis. But I can tell you that it was almost always not successful. And if it is, they will probably take up 2 months or 3 months or at most 4 months out of the 12-month period that you were meant to article. So you found a lot of people, a lot of internationally trained lawyers who come in and write the NCAs are not able to qualify. And they're just hanging in the balance because they haven't been able to secure a spot for articles. But during the COVID pandemic, early last year, a lot of law offices had to shut down. A lot of people couldn't pay their staff and all of that before the government intervention. So the Law Society thought it wise to modify and amend the number of months recommendation for articles. So in line with all that was happening, Law Society then said, now what we can do is those who are articling now, if you've done up to 8 months, you can speak with your principal. And if your principal is able to ascertain that you've learned all that you're supposed to learn, your principal can sign you off to be called to bar at 8 months.
To
Yes.
bar.
So as it is
Wow.
now, and it's from now up until next year, I believe, before it is reviewed, you can article in Alberta between 8 and 12 months. That's the rule. So the big firms still do 12 months, but some other firms will say, okay, no, that's fine. Um, I think I can teach you all that you need to learn within 8 months, and then you can get called. Okay. So that's the new way now. So it shaves off one third of the number of months that you're supposed to do the articles, and it also just generally speed up the process for a lot of people who are looking to get called, particularly people who have had experiences, from other jurisdiction before coming to Canada. So, but then remember, I had said earlier that ideally you're supposed to do both together. But because a lot of
Yeah.
people do not get articling spots, articling position, the Law Society as well then sat down and said, okay, just instead of them to be waiting and looking and just not knowing what the next step is, you can start to prepare ahead of time. You can start simply, right? Which is now called prep. You can start CIPLED and start the program. And in the course of the program, remember CIPLED is 9 months. Article is supposed to be 8 months. So 8 months to 12 months. So you're supposed to do it concurrently. But if you can't find a spot yet, to keep busy and not, fall off the wagon and all of that, you can start the CIPLED process. You can start, and all of that. And by the way, CIPLED used to be once a year. If you missed the registration deadline, you were done until the next year. And this was impacting negatively on internationally trained lawyers because remember, we are not the traditional law school where you article in July, in June, July. You had the window to article. So you could literally finish your exams in December and you cannot start CIPLED until June, July. So you had to do that, and maybe you had secured a slot for articles. So you finish your articles, you can't be called because you haven't finished CIPLED because you have to wait. So I know someone who had to article for maybe 16, 18 months because of the whole CIPLED and articles thing. So what they did was to update it and make CIPLED twice a year now. So you have January and June. So December, January, and then June, July. So you have two intakes at that point in time. So if you finish between January and May or June, fantastic. You join the next batch. And if you finish between July and December, you join the next batch. So to make it easier for people. So you can actually start the CIPLED while you're still searching for articles. And then when you find articles, you simply just, continue along that line. I did the traditional CIPLED. I was the last set of the CIPLED before the new prep now in the province of Alberta. So I basically, I articled, I did CIPLED before I was called to bar. So CIPLED is the theoretical aspect of learning law in Alberta, while the articling is the hands-on and practical experience in understanding the legal process in Alberta, which is a requirement for you to be called to bar in Alberta.
Okay, fantastic. So I think this is a good time for me to recap what Moyo and Lawretta have said. And please, I am not a lawyer. I have no legal competencies. If I am wrong, stop me. But what I've heard so far is that the first thing you need to do is write your get your documents together and get your documents assessed by your provincial by the national body. Okay, now that national body is the one that sets the NCA exams, which is the exams that I thought was the only one that you guys wrote. But clearly, after writing that one, then you need to. How many
No,
exams are
not
in
that I
that
know.
set? Between five
Yeah,
and what? What's the
Yeah,
maximum?
someone got
I
17.
don't.
Someone got 17 online last week. 17 courses.
Oh boy. Okay, so it's between
Yes.
five and X.
Yes.
X being infinity.
Yes.
But the minimum that you would be required to write
And it
is
could
Yes,
5
change to
exams.
yes,
6 from
because
January 2022.
yes,
They are looking to change it from 6.
Okay, thanks for adding that because that's
Yes, in
valuable
January
information.
2022. Yeah.
Fantastic. So after
for
finishing your
Ontario.
NCAs, then there's going to be the bar
For
exams proper
Ontario, ban for Ontario. Yes.
for Ontario. So Alberta does not have a bar exams
Prep.
requirement. That requirement is
Sibling.
fulfilled by
Prep
Sibling
as it is.
or,
Yes.
or now called prep. Okay, so step one, assessment. Step two, NCAs.
Depending on your
Step
province,
three, in
step
Ontario.
3 will change.
Yes, so step three
Yes.
bifurcates at the provincial level. Ontario have the bar exams. Alberta have prep, and
Yes.
then articling. Ontario, you may get exemptions
Yes.
based on your experience. Alberta, forget it. Thanks to COVID, 4 months, there's a
As
potential.
long as
It's not
you
real.
and
There's
your
a
principal
For an
potential.
agree
abridgment.
to that number of months.
Agree.
And this is also because, yes, this is
Fan-
because they want to be sure that you will learn all that you need to learn within that time frame. And you would also be able to, again, prep means the practice readiness education program, right? So it's about you being ready
yes.
for the legal market. So they want to be sure that while you're
For the
doing the prep
profession.
program, which is organized by Stiplet, Stiplet is the Canadian Center for Professional Legal Education, right? So it's a school on its own organizing the prep program. So while you're doing the theoretical aspect, they
Okay.
want to be sure that the hands-on experience, the practical aspect of going to court, of drafting motions, what you're learning in class, you're practicalizing it
You're doing
in
daily.
practice, right?
Interesting, interesting. I can see some analogs to this in another professions. I
And
won't
then
say
the
anything
prep
about
also
that for
has
now.
exams. So let's
So,
not. That's another thing people think. Prep,
oh,
people think prep
okay.
is just a series of talk and all of that. Prep is broken down into workshops, practice, foundation modules, and now you have to do what is known as capstones, and that's the final exam. So it's a nine
Okay.
month learning journey. 9 months, like you're in class for different subjects, different courses. You do real estate, you do like all sorts of program, and at the end of the day, you are evaluated during your capstone, and you could pass it or fail it, just like the bar exam in
For
Ontario.
prep, is there like a pass mark? Because for the bar exam, and that's part
Okay.
of why it's so
Yes,
um it's so hard to deal with when you start. There's no pass mark. You don't know what you're getting into. You don't know whether, oh, if you get 50 you're good, if you get 60 you're good, 70 you don't even know. So there's an average provincial score that it's weighed by, like you don't know what, so you get your result, you really don't know. Maybe good but not as good as the average provincial score at the end of the day. So
yeah,
yeah.
yes. For prep, there's a minimum
Wow.
benchmark that you have to meet. There's a minimum benchmark. So it's broken down into 4 levels. So if you have a level 1, you're definitely not going anywhere. Level 2 depends on how many level 2 you have in how many
Okay.
courses. So level 3 and level 4 is the minimum that is well, or that is recommended for you to be able to pass through. And another thing is there are several courses. I think it's up to about 10 or thereabouts for capstone. If you fail a certain number, I think 1 or 2, you have to redo everything, the entire capstone. That's how that when we did the traditional CPLED program, it
Yeah.
was broken down into timelines, and we did each course, wrote the competency evaluation, and then if you pass it, you would know that you've passed it, and you move on to the next stage. So you're able to tick off, certain numbers. Okay, I'm done with the first. I'm done with the second. I'm done with the third. So you can
Oh,
see your
okay.
scores
So
on your
that's gone
dashboard
now.
and say, okay, did I fail this one? I have to
Yeah.
redo this one, and they will reschedule it because there are always 2 sessions and 2 sets. But you can't do that now. You do all of that together in Capstone, and then all the results are published at the same time. And I can tell you from a lot of the feedback that I've gotten, it's a huge emotional burden on the people.
Yeah. I can imagine what that feels like because like I said, I'm aware of another profession that does something similar, but this is about lawyers. So Shalewa, over to you. You are the one that has done the impossible. Walking on water and talking to God.
Ahead of me.
Oh,
Yeah,
come on, I'm just teasing you. Now tell us. Tell us your
I
experience
know.
transferring from the Ontario bar to get your practice license in the Alberta bar.
Alberta. Okay. So, like Mo explained, you can either get exempted from articles and all of that. So I got an exemption from articling based on my paralegal experience in Nigeria and the fact that I was able to satisfy the competencies that were set by the Law Society of Ontario. So having done that, I got called in February, and after my call to bar, I waited a couple of days for my name to be on the roll and everything. When that was confirmed, I logged into my lawyer's portal. I enrolled and did everything that was needed to be done. Then I also paid my insurance in Ontario. Once you've done that, then you can start the transfer process. The thing about transfer is the application will be made to the bar, to the province that you want to transfer to. So the application for transfer is not usually from Ontario, right? Even though you're coming from Ontario. So you go to the website of the Law Society of Alberta. You look for the part that talks about Canadian lawyers, and then you see the transfer processes. First thing you would have to do is to fill an application. You get that notarized or commissioned, depending on what exactly it is on the form. Right now, I cannot remember. Like Moyo said, honestly, when you've passed through the process,
When you're done, you're done.
you know, yeah. So you fill out the application form. You will get your certificate of good standing from Ontario. You can apply for that online through your portal, and then you also apply for the one from Nigeria. So please, when you're getting your letter of good standing, maintain the relationship because you're still going to go knock on that door. Another good thing is you can get it through the Nigerian Bar Association website, but for some of us, we just still prefer to have somebody go help us, get it. I don't see
Go
the
ahead.
time. Should I continue? Okay. Yeah. So you need those two. And from any other jurisdiction where you've practiced law before, you also need to get a letter of good standing. Then the next thing is the errors and omissions letter from the insurer in Ontario or any other jurisdiction where you've practiced. Now, I reached out to my insurance in Ontario and I told them I need this document. And they were like, oh, you were just called to bar last week, right? You haven't really practiced, so you don't have any errors or omissions. There's really nothing for us to issue that on. So we're just going to advise you to forward the declaration page because after you get your invoice, there's a declaration page that comes with it. They're like, send that to the Law Society of Alberta. But that was a big mistake that set me back by almost a month. So please make sure you insist on getting that errors and omissions letter because the Law Society of Alberta, they don't reply to your mails immediately you send it. They have a timeline that they work with. So it takes sometimes 10 to 15 to 20 business days for them to get back to you. Now imagine you submitting the declaration or a certificate of insurance. Because when I went back to the Law Society, to the insurance company in Ontario, they were like, "Oh, they didn't accept that. How about you give them the certificate of insurance?" And then I fully did that again. And Law Society of Alberta is like, we don't want a certificate. We don't want it. We want errors and omissions letter. Whether or not you've had any errors, we don't care. But we just have to see a letter that says, this is the errors and omissions letter. She hasn't committed any of these and she's good to go. So please insist on that letter, no matter what the customer service rep on the other end of the phone is advising you to get, right? Another thing is they require that you provide a letter as well for any other jurisdiction you've practiced. Now we know that back in Nigeria, we didn't have to get insurance, right, to practice. So nobody's going to issue that letter for you. So I had to do a letter to explain because I told them we don't have that. They're like, well, explain to us, why don't you have it? And so I had to draft the letter and I'm like, okay, In Nigeria, everything was pretty much governed by the MBA and all of that. They have provided you a letter of good standing that states that I have no this and that and that. So I pretty much had to canvass an argument in order for them to be like, okay, fine, you've satisfied that. So the truth is, they kind of stick with the checklist, and please and please just save yourself the stress from the get-go. Just do a letter and tell them, okay, we don't have this for this jurisdiction, but this is the one from Ontario, and just give that to them. Another thing again is, with your application form, you need to submit your NCA qualifying certificate. That's all they ask for online. However, at the point where they're putting your documents together, they also need your LL.B certificate. That is not on the website. That is not on the form. So 15 days after I submitted, they came back and said, can you provide us with the university certificate? I'm like, why did you not just tell me this, And that's why I wouldn't lie. I'm so happy to be doing this, because I feel like I'm going to save a lot of people the stress I went through. I'm still going to write on Moyo's page. I'm going to write on LinkedIn, because I feel if they put everything there and you submit a well-rounded package, trust me, in a month, you can actually be done with transfer. Mine took 4 months because there was lots of, back and forth. Yeah. So another thing is, you don't get to pay until you're finally approved. So when they approve the process, that's when you're going to pay for the application and the transfer fees as well. One more thing is, if during that period you secure a job, you're allowed to apply for something called a permission to practice law pending transfer. Now, the most advisable thing to do, if you already maybe have a job before you start the transfer process, is for you to submit both applications at the same time. Otherwise, at the point of submitting the other one, you're going to need to bring some other documents again. So they may be asking you afresh for a letter of good standing. So the rep I spoke with then said, do you have a job right? I'm like, well, no, not yet. But what? She was like, you know what? Put everything in. Maybe before the 15 days when we're going to treat it, you get a job, shoot us a mail, let us know that I really need this. I need to practice now. So please feel free to put all the documents together and submit. And yeah, pretty much. Once they approve your application, you would have to also pay for your insurance. You would have to pay for your practicing fee in Alberta as well. The only thing about the process, to be honest, is the fact that you're going to have to pay your practicing fee in Ontario, you pay the insurance in Ontario, and then you come to Alberta and then you have to do the same again. So just, keep your money ready for the process. Try to go on both websites and, put down some of the figures you can see, not just so you avoid, at the last minute, you're now thinking, oh, I need to pay this, I need to pay that. And most of those payments, they don't accept credit card. So you really have to have your money ready, right? What else? Your resume is another thing. So they didn't ask for that on the website as well. But then they came back again when I felt like, okay, now I've given everything you asked for. In another 15 days, I'm going to get the sweet email. You've been approved. And they come and they say, can you please provide us with your resume and details of your prior legal experience? I'm like, what? And
Alberta doesn't joke. Alberta doesn't joke. Alberta doesn't joke.
Yes, that was my experience, right? But like I said, I just feel that if the website was updated with some of those things, like when they said submit your NCA certificate, they could have put also include your LL.B, right? You have to put that. But because they didn't pull that, and because the information is not out there, other people that have gone through it have not really come out to talk about it. You don't know. And that's why this is going to be very beneficial for other people that want to toe the same line, right? So when you're submitting your NCA, include your LL.B already. Make it one document, right? When you're packaging everything, include your resume and do a letter with your prior legal experience. I'm sure when they receive a package like that, they would even be impressed. Like, wow, this person really did their homework. And with that, you have 15 to 20 days and they'll review your application. Otherwise, it's going to be back and forth. Yeah. But to be candid, I feel like the process, other than all those issues, is pretty straightforward. Honestly, it is straightforward. And I think it's also because of the mobility agreement and arrangement they have with some other provinces. So yeah,
Interesting.
I rest in
Interesting.
case.
So I have one question left.
Okay.
What's the total cost of this process from?
But if you don't want to ask that
We don't
question,
even want to calculate it.
you don't want to
We
discourage
don't want to know
people,
the
so you don't want
total.
to ask that question.
Okay,
Really, truly.
okay. Let's
No,
let
for the
let's let's
NCAs,
let let's
for the
let's leave that.
NCAs,
That's part
it
one.
makes sense to
Now,
talk
what's going
about
to
the
happen
cost
right
for the
now is
NCAs,
Yes,
not the
so
cost for the other STEM.
like for NCAs, each exam is $400. So it keeps fluctuating. It's between $350 and $400. They just switched back to $400 again. So and that may change anytime too.
Yes,
So that's
yeah.
per exam.
So if you're writing 5 courses, $2,000. Yes. That's not
Well, it's
inclusive
okay.
of
It's
yeah.
okay for
notes
you
or
guys
I
in
tutors.
Alberta
still
when you're
okay.
paying 5% tax. Our own tax,
Mhm.
it's like
13%. So that's not inclusive of notes or tutors if you
yes,
intend to use
yes.
tutors or anything. So that's the official
Yeah,
fee.
the notes
Yeah.
and the textbooks, the criminal code. There's a lot
Okay.
of spending really.
There's a lot for each course has its requirement. There are textbooks, there are summaries. Of course, you have to get your constitution, you have to get criminal code. So there are a lot of other things that are aside the official fee. So the $400 excluding tax is just the money you pay to the NCA for each course. And depending on the number of courses you have, you would multiply $400 by the number of courses. But the beauty of it is NCA gives you 5 years to be able to complete the number of courses that you've been given. So you can actually break down the process and write maybe one exam per quarter, one exam a year, however you want it at your pace. So you can also then make arrangement for the money as well in with that planning.
As a summary to our discussion, these are the processes required for admission into the Ontario Bar as an internationally trained lawyer. Said candidate would have to complete the two components of the Ontario Bar exams, made of the solicitor examination, which comprises of business law, real estate, estate administration and planning, as well as ethics and professionalism. The second examination, also known as the barrister examination, comprises of civil procedure, criminal law, public law, family law, as well as ethics and professionalism. These are self-study exams which hold over a 4-hour period. Candidates will be required to answer 160 questions. In order to transfer to the Alberta Bar, the following requirements would have to be met. The first option will be the completion of the transfer examinations. However, these examinations can be waived if either of the following conditions are met. 1. The candidate having secured employment with a government department or corporation, and said candidate will solely provide services as per the scope of that employment. The second option is that the applicant is a member in good standing of a jurisdiction participating in the National Mobility Agreement, of which Ontario is one, provided that the applicant certifies to have familiarized themselves with Alberta laws required to competently practice law, including the materials in the reading list as set by the Executive Director. In addition, upon being called to the Alberta Bar, the lawyer would be mandated to complete a 5-module course known as the Indigenous Cultural Competency Education, called The Path, by the Law Society of Alberta, Your Journey Through Indigenous Canada. All these learnings are considered necessary to help equip the lawyer for a successful practice in Alberta.